Hi, it's Michael Ankrah, founder of Hackner Education and author of Learning Naturally. I'm really happy to come to you again through the power of the internet and have another conversation with you. And today I'm really going to talk about something which is like a slight departure from the things I normally talk about, which is more to do with teaching and learning. But you would realize that in the end, it comes back to the same thing. Because one of the things I am beginning to realize is that all the truth of this world is just one. So that when I read books, I listen to podcasts and do all manner of things, the message all seems to come back to the same centrality. And it is so because we as human beings have our natural way of doing things. And until we go back to our natural path, we're just going to be struggling and doing so many things, and it will seem as if nothing works. Now today, what I'm going to talk about, started from a conversation that I had with my wife about, her experience at church, which we normally do. And I kind of asked her about what was your service about today, because she attends the Christ Temple. And today I'll try to sort of use my teleprompter a little bit, so you will see me referring to this every now and then. And I asked her, what did Otabil preach about today? And she was, saying that actually it was a reference to the anniversary of the church. And Otabil referred to the vision of Christ Temple. And I particularly liked it because I like the way or the order in which it has been listed, because it states that, Icgc aims at 1, raising leaders, 2, shaping visions, and 3, influencing societies through Christ. And I found this to be very, very important, because leadership really in any endeavor is key. Because for any individual or organization or a country, you need leadership. But I think we have come to buy the wrong idea or the wrong notion of leadership. You see, out of our scarcity mentality, we tend to associate wealth or power or positions of authority with leadership. But that is really not the case. I tend to have a very simple definition for leadership, and I define it this way. It is the ability or the process of making or taking decisions out of multiple options. And when you break leadership down in this way, you come to realize that then leadership is not reserved for powerful people in government or for your parents or for the pastor or for anybody in that regard. Everybody has a responsibility to exercise leadership. And I tend to teach my children in class that, look, I as a teacher, I am only a facilitator. Okay, so I lead the teaching and learning, but when it comes down to learning, that goes back to you. So, as a church, I really am encouraged by the fact that Pastor Mensah Otabil has made it a mission of the church to raise leaders. Because the reason why I like the order was because you need to be able to assume your leadership as a person, as a country, before you can actually begin to shape your vision. Because you see, your vision might not come to you at the beginning. You might have an idea of something that you want to do, but until you take the steps to embark on something, you will never come to the point where you can crystallize your vision and say, yes, this is the path I want to go. So it is true. First, you develop your leadership. And what really is this about leadership? Leadership is just that as a human being, so you say to yourself, I am going to dedicate 10 minutes every Saturday morning to read a book. Or as a pupil in school, I'm going to make sure that before I watch television, I'm going to have 5 minutes, of just reading something, practicing my times table. as a country, we need to be able to say that our vision, just like Otabil's church, is to raise people, citizens who are resourceful. Now, there's often the notion that people are often the country's most valuable resources. Now, this is true to some extent, okay? It is true to the extent that the citizens of the country have the capacity and the capability to be able to do the work that needs to be done. Now, if you find yourself in Ghana, for instance, there is the abundance of work there that needs to be done. We don't have a address system. Our streets are not properly named. There is no postal service. I remember I sent something to my wife, and up to today, it has not been delivered because it was a PO box, and then it goes there. Nobody knows whether it's been delivered or not. So there are a lot of basic things. Every problem that we find in our society is work. And I tend to define work this way. Think of it. If you are speaking to a friend or a colleague and you say, I have got work to do at home, what you are saying to your friend is that I know there is a problem or there is something that needs my attention. And come to think of it, guys, look at Ghana. There are countless of things that need to be done. But you see, the problem of a dependency mindset is not something that we are born with. It's not generic. It's not generic. Neither is it an accident. That mindset is something that we learned. Okay, because Aristotle, put it this way. He said that, we are a product of what we do, okay? So that excellence is a habit rather than something that bestows. I'm just paraphrasing, okay? I'll come to the actual quote of Aristotle, but if you come to it, so basically this is what it says. So we are what we repeatedly do, okay? So forming any habit and the mindset of dependency, the culture where everybody thinks that, it is up to government to do something for me. It is NPP, it is NDC, it's Democrat, it's Republican, it's Labour or Conservative. That is a learned behavior. It is a learned habit. It didn't just come about. Okay? So if we have learned ourselves, and one of the things I established in my book is this, that if you look at the way we educate ourselves as a people, we are conditioned right from an early age, okay, to follow the hierarchy, depend on the teacher to spoon feed you, and even at the end of your education, whether you obtain a first degree, master's, or PhD, you have been conditioned to then look up to somebody to say, oh, where is my office? Where is the job that I am entitled to? The bulk of our education doesn't say that, we are training you to know that you can actually take charge of any situation. If you see a problem, it's an opportunity for you to solve it. So this is something that we have learned. And so I was really encouraged that, the pastor was trying to encourage his congregation, that is members of Icgc, to be leaders. And I think in his sermon, he said something to the tune that, anything that makes you dependent is not empowering you and is making you dependent and is taking away your ability to lead. And I think that is profound because you see, many people in Ghana and in Africa are being taken advantage of by some pastors and politicians and other people because we are made to believe that, oh, your success depends on somebody. Even according to the gospel, the Bible, your faith should empower you to take charge, to feel confident. God said in the Bible that take dominion over the earth. And taking dominion means that you should be able to see any problem in the world and say that I can surmount this. That is how we have survived as human beings. Because you see, if you think back, and this will be part of another video that I will do about my book, but at the beginning of time, millions of years back, when our early ancestors were living with the dinosaurs and all the animals in the wild, they stood no chance. But their ability to be able to learn and dominate, overcome their environment, overcome the challenges of a predator, an animal, coming to eat them or kill them, was why they or we have become the most dominant force or animals on the face of this earth. So that is really a power, an endowment that is given to us by our Creator. So until everybody assumes the right, the sense, the right mindset that I can do this, Ghana is not going to develop. And then I hear the message. There was also a brief reference about the fact that the media in Ghana have become extremely partisan. And this, I believe, is a very troubling, phenomenon, because I follow, politics in the US and other places, and there are commentators in America who are scratching their heads to say, how did we end up with somebody who is so divisive, somebody who is so appalling in so many ways? And it comes with a constant drumbeat. There has been the right-wing media, which has seen everything by other people as evil. And this has been fed to people over and over and over again. So there are people who genuinely believe that the world is America, and, black people are bad, and all manner of things. And they were not. Nobody was created like that. We learn our behavior. And we don't learn it in an instant. Like Aristotle said, we are what we repeatedly do. What we demonstrate, our personality, therefore represents the habit that we have learned over time. This was for me very encouraging. The only problem is that the problem with the partisanship of the media is not just with Ghana. It also goes to the other part of the world. Here in the UK, in fact, I tend to listen only to smooth radio because there's a lot of music and less talk. But if you watch like a Sky News or something, they constantly try to brainwash you, with what they want you to think. And that is the whole idea, because you are being molded to think this way, and it comes in, multiple ways, like you are told that it is this Mother's Day, you must do this, Valentine's Day, you must do this, and the media literally tells people what they must do. Because come to think of it, the way most Ghanaians celebrate, Christmas or Valentine's Day or Easter, say in the UK, is completely different from how it's celebrated in Ankrah or in Kumasi or in Navrongo. Now, what makes the difference? The difference really is based on what people have been told, the messages that they have received. So it was quite interesting that during the week, whilst talking to my wife again, by the way, my wife lives in Ghana, she told me that, some people in the media have taken up an issue with Otabil's message that the media talks always about MPP and NDC. And I'm like, why should they? That is a fact. I was in Ghana for a brief period of time and I couldn't listen to radio because that was all they were talking about, and most of it made no sense. And my point is this. When people in the media take an issue with such a straight up message, I think it goes to make the pastor's point. You see, in the past, when we had GBC and at the beginning until this liberalization of the media, the mass media was part of the government's arm because they found it important to educate and communicate to their people in that manner. There was a clear vision for GBC and for the BBC and for CNN or the Voice of America and channels like that. They had a clear vision of what they wanted to achieve. With the liberalization of the media, and that sometimes is the, if you like, drawbacks of capitalism, because the vision of educating, empowering people through the media took backstage to rating, to profits, to money. So media houses will do everything or anything that will bring them money, regardless of whether it is beneficial to the people or not. But let me break down a slight difference between the church and the media. You see, the church is an institution of faith. So people will choose to be a part of the church, and whatever the church believes in, if they believe in that, then that's it. It's part of their definition. The media, however, is not. It is often referred to, that is the media, as the fourth estate, because if you take out the executive, legislature, and judiciary, you come to the media. And I think in modern society, the media plays a very important role. The role of shining light on society, because in the absence of the media, a lot of bad things, corruption can go on unchecked. So if the media becomes partisan and everything in the media is translated through party colors, then the people are being denied of the knowledge, of the information that they need to make key decisions. Because remember, leadership is about decisions. But to be able to make very good decisions are based on the resources, the information that you have. And that is why in a society where not many people are reading, not many people are researching, and all their sources of information comes from the media, then if the media is mediocre and does not promote any substance, that is going to be the reflection of the people you have. And it's a very straight up equation, and whether you like it or not, that really is the fact. So people in the media must begin to think that what is it that they want to achieve. And we get it, you want to make money, that's fair enough, but is it possible to balance the financial imperative with the future aspirations of the country? Because at the end of the day, you can fool the people sometimes, but you may not be able to fool them all the time. And when it comes to a point, it's going to backfire on the same media. We can see that in America right now, and it's going to come together. So really, I want people, not just members of Icgc, but Ghanaians to look around and say, what can I do? What can I do to improve things? It's not just about just doing pure water because everybody is doing pure water. But any problem, any challenge, people have prepaid meters and they have to walk distances to be able to top up. Is there anybody who can develop an app, for instance, to do this? Any problem, like I said, is an opportunity. And until we begin to develop the mindset to seize this opportunity, to put the resources of the country to work, having a beautiful slogan to say Ghana Beyond Aid would achieve nothing. What achieves something is to have a very clear vision about the citizens that the country wants to create. Visionaries, people with the ability to say, I want to do that and I can do that. Do I agree with everything that churches or pastors do? Absolutely not. But then people have the freedom to do that. The media, on the other hand, has a role. They have a role to play in society. And perhaps governments must demand, if you like, I know it will be against, they will say, free market economy, because you need to have the laissez-faire approach, allow people to do what they want, rather than dictating what should be done. But in terms of programming, if everything is just shouting garbage, like MPP, everything is about this MPP that, and the next thing is all about sports, football, which is not even local football. I mean, you sit in Ghana and talk about English Premier League. Seriously? When we have major problems, why don't we do things that will promote our league to the standard that we have in Europe? Or we believe that, okay, we can condemn the league in Ghana that can never compare to the English Football League. So we must begin, everybody, to think that how can we raise our standards? Because until we begin to think like that, we will remain where we are. Slogans or no slogans, nothing will happen. And as some of you may know, I am very, very passionate about learning because I believe that it comes to the center of everything that we do as a human being. So, I think the media, rather than feeling aggrieved and criticizing the pastor, they must begin to examine their mission. I did work in media, and our objective, like I said, is driven by profit. It's not about empowering the people, it's not about development, it's not about developing the kind of citizens. But I think it's important that the media sees their education function and do what is right by the people. Our children, must also be encouraged through their education, because it will be a losing battle if a child will start school, say, from the age of 6, and then throughout that, all the way to university, you are conditioned to follow the rules, and when you've done well, somebody will reward you by, giving you a job. That is not going to develop the country. And if you want to understand mindset, just look at Ghana. In the world community, we have the Chinese, for instance. They hardly work for anybody. If you come to Ghana, most Kwao people, would go into business and they succeed at it. Sometimes they will tell you, you go to your school. When you go to school, come and work for me. So there is a difference between finding your life's work. And you can find your life's work in the world. The Bible says take dominion over the earth. So it's about looking around to say, what is the work that needs to be done? And everybody can find their work, because there are, as many as there are people, there seem to be the same amount of issues or work that needs to be done. So we have this responsibility, this challenge as a people, to begin to educate ourselves very differently, in a way that people who come out of our education come out believing and thinking that they are solutions to the problems, rather than people waiting to be employed. Because just Google the word unemployed graduates, you find them all over the world. And one of the questions I asked in a recent article is, what would that situation be in 10 or 20 years' time? And what happens in a society if you have a whole bunch of able-bodied men saying they are unemployed and they are waiting for some employment to come from somewhere for them, which is never coming? Or sometimes they have to do things which they feel is undignifying. It is therefore no wonder that people are now attracted to all sort of behavior, including extremism. Now, Steve Jobs said, and I like this quote, he said, when you grow up, you tend to be told that the world is the way it is, and your life is just to live your life inside the world. He went on, try not to bash into the walls too much, try to have a nice family, have fun, save a little money. But then he pointed out, that is really a very limited life. He continued, life can be much broader once you discover one simple fact. And here is the fact. And the fact, he said, is this: everything around you that you call life was made up by people that were no smarter than you. And you, that is you, can change it. You can influence it. And you can build your own things that other people can use. And then he said this: once you learn that truth, the truth that you can do anything, and the people or the things around you were made by people who are not smarter than you, once you discover that, you will never be the same again. What does it mean? Because you are never going to feel hopeless or helpless because you didn't get that job, or you are not being promoted in the job, because what you begin to look out for is to find your own life's work. That is liberating, that gives you freedom, and that empowers you. So we need to really think carefully, because I think what Reverend or Pastor Otabil was saying is really profound. ICG wants to raise leaders, and from there on, once the leaders are raised, they begin to shape their vision, because writing or developing your own personal vision takes time. It's not something you do in an instant. If you read the 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, you realize that it's a process. But as you begin to work, and most business people say this in a different way, they tell you, just start something. You will start from point A, but in the end, you will discover exactly what you want to do, and you will stick with it. That is the way this is. So we need to begin to think that we are all leaders, to the extent that you have the ability to make a decision, deciding to cut away other options and choices and go with another. You have a leadership responsibility. And the thing is this: you can either take charge of your responsibility as a leader and make that decision yourself based on what you want to do, or you can abdicate, leave that responsibility to others. So you can allow your friends to make the decision for you, you can allow your parents to make the decision for you, or you can allow your government or other people, or even television, the mass media. But at the end of the day, the consequences of that, whether you live a rich and fulfilling life, will come back to you. And that is the most important thing. So let us all begin to think about how we can, change who we are, because we are the sum total of our experiences, whether you are an individual, a family, a community, or a country. The experiences that we get as a people define us. And I hope we begin to think carefully about how we can always, or we can empower each other, right from, our homes, the family. Encourage children to take decisions. Will they make mistakes? Absolutely. But then that is life. And teach the children will begin to know that, if I don't make the right decisions, there could be consequences for it. And if we begin to think this way, I think Ghana, African countries will be on their path towards development. Development is not going to come from anybody, not from government, not from Europe or the West. It has to come from the people. But it's going to come from an empowered people, a people who believe they can change the course of their destiny, not a people who believe that the government will change it. No, the government cannot do it, but it's the people who can. The government has a responsibility. The government has to provide the infrastructure and the environment that allows people to thrive. But once that is provided, it's up to people to do the work that needs to be done. My name is Michael Ankrah, and I thank you for watching this podcast. Thank you very much, and I shall be with you again shortly.